you can see the staff members very, very quickly who are really nervous about their job because they've read the papers, they've seen the news, and now there's this bloke in front of them going, oh, look, it can answer telephones, or, oh, look, it can do data analysis, or, whatever it may be. And you can see the fear. And I've learned that you have to tread very carefully. We have to be really sensitive to this because they believe that to be true.
The AI Grapple, where the future begins.
Welcome to another episode of the AI Grapple podcast. I am Kate vanderVoort from Social Mediology. Today's guest is Julian Moore, a self-proclaimed AI geek and a trailblazer in the AI industry. Julian works with associations and businesses to unlock the potential of AI, transforming their operational performance and driving impactful changes. From negotiating on an aircraft carrier to launching an AI-powered music channel that skyrocketed to 600,000 views in just 8 weeks, Julian's journey is nothing short of remarkable. In this episode, we explore the evolving world of AI, discussing how organizations can swiftly integrate AI tools for immediate and future growth. We also examine Julian's innovative projects like the creation of an AI board member and an AI music channel, and how AI is reshaping various industries. Get ready for an insightful conversation that bridges technology, creativity, and business transformation. Stay tuned and let's dive in. So welcome, Julian. It's great to have you here today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So why don't we kick off with you telling us a bit about your background and what led you to AI?
So my background is essentially I was a negotiator. My role was to help startups, not-for-profits, and governments. And if they weren't confident to go in to do a partnership, they would hire someone like me. So I found myself on the USS Ronald Reagan. And it's an aircraft carrier that comes into Brisbane. And this is November 22. And I'm pitching on behalf of Queensland government to the Admiralty for a range of reasons. Government can't talk and they get someone like me in. And I'm getting ready to do my pitch, and I see there's this other guy there from America, and he's a regular pitcher, and he, quite honestly, lovely man, but really bad at pitching. So you're all excited because you're like, yeah, I'm going to look better than I really am because he can go first. So he went on, and the Admiralty are there, and he said, look, I've not prepared a pitch. I've not prepared a PowerPoint. I've not prepared anything. He's opened his laptop and said, because the Admiralty are looking pretty kind of awkward at this point. So he said, tell me the top 3 things to make this partnership the most successful you've ever made. What would they be? He's entered them in. He's hit enter. This is the day of the launch of GPT, and magic happened. And then the Admiralty's jaws hit the floor, and everything was lost. I lost the deal. He won the deal. Everyone else was like, holy moly, how awesome is this? I walked away after catching up with him saying, what was that? And because my background, my background is, I'm a Microsoft certified engineer ages ago. So I knew he'd done some wonderful software. I didn't realize this was real. So I then contacted OpenAI and said, and this is when they're still a research company and not rock stars, and said, look, we've got 60,000 CEOs on our database that we work with around Australia, and you've just changed the world. How, and what, when, why, everything. And they said, well, spend a week with us. So I did. And then from there, I contacted Anthropic. From there, it was, and before you knew it, you had this great understanding and real proper in-depth knowledge of just how it's going to change the face of membership organizations and governments. And well, ever since, I found myself touring Australia, answering questions on AI.
Amazing. I think we all remember that first moment where it kind of dawns on us what this actually means. And, you know, for those of us that work in AI all day, every day, it's just commonplace now. But I love seeing the lights go on for people when they first see what this actually means.
Yeah,
So we're going to talk about all of that, which I'm very excited about. But first, I want to touch on something a little quirky. So you launched an AI music channel, which reached 600,000 views in just 8 weeks. Not quite ChatGPT's 100 million in 2 months, but 600,000 views in just 8 weeks. So why did you start an AI music channel, and why do you think it took off in the way that it did? Or tell us a bit more about that.
It's completely by chance. It's the most random thing. You've got some over 50-year-old, slightly portly guy suddenly going into the Australian pop charts. We made it to it's just the most off the wall thing. Essentially, we were running an AI conference, and I was asked to do a interview with a radio channel. And I thought, well, how do you convey what AI can do to an audience that can't see anything? And everyone had used the voice and heard AI talk, and the lag and the latency wasn't good. It's not like what we're expecting shortly. And so I thought, I know, I'll just use Suno and I'll make a little song about the radio presenter and channel. And so I practiced. I made one about my wife, and it was all mushy, slushy stuff. And then I made one for the radio presenter, and I thought, she played it. So on the interview. And the only way, because the size and scale of it was sort of 400 meg, I couldn't just email it to her. So what I did, because I put a video with it, I just created a little YouTube channel and said, here's the link. Well, she played it on the radio, and 400 or 500 people watched. And I thought, that's pretty cool. So then I thought, maybe instead of just playing, what if I could do this? Because at the conference, a music academic had come up and gone, Julian, AI will never replicate humans in music because music talks to our soul. And people don't follow music, they follow the artist, and the artist has to connect with them. And he went full creative on it. And I just said, that's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. I get in my car, I turn on Spotify, and Spotify chooses the music I like to listen to because it knows what I listen to. So there's no human element left in that environment. There's no human element left on a Saturday morning when I'm house cleaning and I've got the music playing. So it's the human element is when I'm looking at something, and that's less than 20-30%. So surely there's a market there for 70%. So I said, look, this is, and I'll prove it. What I'll do is I'll create one. And sure enough, he was from a big university here in Australia. And we set ourselves an 8-week target. And I was only meant to get 10,000, but it went crazy. I went, so Suno doesn't write great lyrics. It writes great music with wonderful voices. But there's however many AIs that's great at creative writing. So I went on to GPT and said, hey, GPT, I need to learn how to write a good song. I'm an 80s pop tragic. I love Kylie Minogue and I love all the pop history. So let's work out in America, in Australia, and in the UK, map me all the top 10 hits from 1973 when I was born, all the way to today, and then break them down and show me the commonalities, and then break down the commonalities and show me which ones went most highest up the charts, show me what patterns they have, show me what stories they told, and let's work the not only the demographics, but the stats. So it came up with this formula. I then went into Claude and said to Claude, this is the formula we must follow. but we need to get really creative. And I want to write a song. First off, no swearing. It needs to be played everywhere. But I want to write an empowerment song. I want to write one that makes anyone who listens to it feel pumped up, feel awesome, feel like they can do anything. It mustn't sound like Christian rock. It mustn't sound like this, mustn't sound like this. And then it generated it. I went into Suno. I made about the better part of 100 versions until I found the one I like. And then put it with through Kyber to make the music video, put it on. And I forget exactly, but it was over 1,000 views in the day one. And
amazing.
I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And we got to 3 weeks, and then I thought, okay, now we're doing okay. Let's now find a distributor that will put me onto Suno, onto Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes. And the first Australian one declined me and said, no, we don't do that AI stuff. And so I thought, well, you're lost. What I'll do here is find, and sure enough, I found one who does. I had to create my own record label. I then had to create all this crazy register for the ARIA membership here, the Australian Institute of Record or Radio Airplay. I then had to go through all these ridiculous hoops that you have to go through, but did them all. So now we sit at 8 weeks later, we sit at a little over 600,000 views. We've got over 60,000 subscribers. I've got slightly over 1 million streams on streaming channels. And it's simply, I think, because you write to an audience, and I picked the audience. That's me, aging pop tragics who like the poppy kind of uplifting music. There is a few in there. I wanted to see if I could write this for anyone. So I actually aimed at one of the toughest audiences, which is the American Christians. And I wrote one there. That went insane. It's still today on one of the biggest Christian playlists in Spotify. I then wanted to get on Pride Month. I created one for the LGBTQI marketplace. And for those listeners who look at my channel, do be aware that's the not safe for work video. And then
I've watched that one.
It's really tacky. But then, of course, the videos are getting better. You get better at understanding the music, the intros, the outros. You get better at understanding the hooks that are required, and you just get better. And each one seems to be getting better.
It's interesting when you say what the professor was saying, because I was having this conversation with a musician friend of mine recently, and he said, but I play music because it brings me joy, and AI isn't going to do that for me. And I said, no, but it's not about you. For someone like me who has no musical talent at all, being able to create music and being able to take what sometimes is just random thoughts in my head and turn that into a song is really quite amazing. And I've created anthems for my children. They walk around the house singing their songs, and they're highly personalized to them. I create songs for each conference that I present at, and, the conference loves that because it's a song that's really, really tailored to them. But I often joke that it's not the Terminator scenario we need to worry about with AI. It's that AI is going to drive us all crazy with catchy jingles, and that's how AI is going to take over.
Whenever I'm asked about it, I always point out, if this is what someone with a bit of creativity, imagine what your musician friend could do with it. Imagine if the musician stopped saying, oh, but it's trained on everything. Every musician in the world is trained on someone else's music. They're trained how to play the guitar or Mozart or whoever it may be. If you ask Cold Chisel who their influences are, they will tell you it would be all the rock stars of their era. Everyone's got an influence, and everyone's trained on something. All the
So do you believe that AI enhances creativity or diminishes creativity?
It massively, like exponentially grows creativity. At no point would I, as like I can play the piano, but at no point would I have ever thought I could have a music channel. It's basically it's done away with all the hurdles of getting into the sector. But I still believe that one of the great things about this is a musician would make that so much better than I ever could. They would they're born for it. It's in them, and they've got the history. They're the peak of their sector. And that's just a tool for them to show their brilliance.
Amazing. Well, I love that I love hearing all the quirky ways that people are, discovering new things that, as you say, you would never have imagined running a music label.
It's nuts. I've now found myself just recently, I've been asked to go and show off how it's happened and do the discography type of thing and talk through why each one and what they were done, and then try to make one live, including the video and so forth, which that will be fun. But it's to a music audience. So I'm hoping that they'll understand if they embrace this with their skills, it will be amazing for them.
Well, my kids have asked me to create a new song for them each year until they're 18 so that they have their own album. So I may need a record label myself, but we'll see how we go. So, Julian, just coming back to sort of the work or the business application of AI, I'd love if you could share some of the key ways that you've seen AI transform the organizations that you work with.
Oh, I've got two favorites, I think. The first is an organization that sells medical components, but they're tailored, they're implants. So most of their time was spent on the phones, fielding questions from the medical specialist, ringing in, going, "Where's this component? When can I expect it?" So they put an AI receptionist on, and then linked it through to their database. They had an old Maria database, and then people can now ring in and go, "Hey, it's Bert Smith from wherever," or "I've got this order number," or "my client's name is," and it will immediately access the database and go, this implant is due to be finalized on this date, or good news, it's already in the post, and answers 80 to 90% of the phone calls, leaving all the team free to make the implants faster, and so everyone's better off. But the most lovely thing is now, whoever rings up, they can speak in any language, whatever their first language is, and it can hold that conversation with them for as long as they like, answer all the questions, and really satisfy, like I say, 80 to 90% of the questions. The newest one is...
Can I just say on that, what I love about what you've just said there is that I think a lot of organizations are concerned or are looking at, are they going to do less with what they've got? Whereas what you've talked about is being able to do so much more with less, and that we can actually redivert some of that energy into doing the work, having the impact, connecting with humans. And it's one of the fears, and we're going to talk about challenges in a moment, but I think it's one of the fears that a lot of organizations and businesses have, is around what does it mean for their workforces. And when you talk about, an AI receptionist, there's obvious implications for that. But what you've just highlighted there is that actually frees them up to do the work and to have a greater impact in the work that they're doing.
Yeah, I think the big misconceptions, and it's understandable, all the news media is consolidated to a handful of owners, and they're paid by clicks these days. They're not paid by genuine information. And if I put AI is going to take your job and here's why, you're going to click and read. If I put the great news is productivity is going up and life's going to be easier and you're going to be able to do more with your time, and most people are going to see a huge benefit, no one reads it. So it's they're just clickbaiting. Realistically, any tool that you implement should have a 10 to 50 to 100 times increase in productivity, and whoever's using it, their life should be pretty straightforward for them. In some of the discussions we're having is, 27,000 hours on one of these tasks that gets done yearly across is now brought down to 27 hours.
And how are you measuring that return on investment for organisations, just to divert a little bit off my original question?
It varies. It absolutely, it depends, because every single one's different. If they're heavy in research, if they're heavy in academia, maybe they're a chemist, and let's say a standalone retail chemist, and they have rush hours. Well, I've seen the most wonderful thing for chemists where they just have a concierge, a shopper, an app that as you go in on the phone, it says, "Can we help you? Because all our staff are serving at the moment." And it might say, "Oh, I've got, indigestion. Oh, you would need to see Gaviscon. This is on aisle whatever. Tell me more and I'll see." And now you've got your personal shopper. That could be in every store. It could be, and these things are simply, while your staff are busy serving and selling and making your organization money, who's looking after the customers they're not getting to? AI can do this. It's
Excellent.
good
And
news
sorry,
already.
you had another example of where you...
Yes. So last week we built the first AI board member for an association, and I was super excited over that. So because the CEO of the association said, "Julian, what I really want is my board to make their decisions based on data." If you look at the Australian Institute of Company Directors, it's all about making an informed choice as a board member. Well, if you feed AI all the constitution, all the mission, all the purpose, all the history of all the past, all the white papers, legislation, everything, and then give it its instruction, "This is your job. Your job is to help the board make a decision based on data and what would cost analysis, how you feel it will make the members better off," and base it all on this. The board can now just make a much more informed choice, faster, based on data, and have a really good understanding of the implications and what it might mean to each of these choices. But it's all done through voice. They just talk to it and it just talks. So they chose a voice, they chose all these types of things. And now they have Alice, who is the board member. She's been co-opted on. And
I love that.
They all just have her on the phone and chat with her.
I heard the other day too about a Chinese company who has, they actually have multiple CEOs that have different strengths, but they've put an AI CEO in that rotates through. And when you think about the different lens, I guess, that each CEO brings, and then to have one that's an AI that's obviously very data focused and very capable from an analytic perspective, it's, thinking about the value that adds.
One of the researchers once said to me, "Julian, you have to understand AI doesn't think the way we do. It's amazing at patterns." And he said, "Well, imagine you're playing a game of Connect 4, Julian. If you don't tell AI the size of that board, you might say, 'I'm going to put my yellow one in column 2,' and it drops to the bottom. AI might say, 'I'm going to put my red one in column 5,468,342, and I'm going to drop that.' We can't comprehend the size and scale of that board. So, of course, it's going to be much better at patterns, and it'll see things we simply don't see. It's the most wonderful assistant for anyone to use in manufacturing and to use in services, because it sees the bits we don't."
I love that. So I think, the use cases where it's really positive and where it makes a lot of sense, we've covered some of those. In your experience, what are kind of the biggest challenges that organisations are facing when it comes to integrating AI? A lot of the work that I do is around the culture change that needs to happen within an organisation or a business to embrace these new tools. And there's a lot of challenges that come up around that. So what are you seeing in your work in terms of the challenges or the obstacles to integrating and implementing AI?
Yeah, the big one's fear.
Hmm.
Fear is at the forefront of everything.
And what are
Because,
you hearing people are most fearful about?
well, typically I'm called in by the board or the CEO. And the first thing before you want to start talking about installations and, development stuff is really, let's have a conversation and show everyone what AI can currently do. And you can see the staff members very, very quickly who are really nervous about their job because they've read the papers, they've seen the news, and now there's this bloke in front of them going, oh, look, it can answer telephones, or, oh, look, it can do data analysis, or, whatever it may be. And you can see the fear. And I've learned that you have to tread very carefully. We have to be really sensitive to this because they believe that to be true. Now, I know it's not. We've done research. We know there's 97,000 job shortages in Australia because of AI. It's going to improve pretty much everyone's role. It's going to make them more productive using less time, which means that they'll be able to finally empty their inbox. But you have to follow the journey. You have to take them along, hold their hand and let them and see that AI, as good as it is, can do nothing without a human. And even it still makes stuff up. It still hallucinates. It has to be verified. You have to check its work. It's just, and it's funny because they use the word assistant, and I think that's a hurdle for some people because they think of it as a software assistant instead of thinking it, I've got a new employee sat beside me who knows the world's information but doesn't really, it's a bit socially awkward, doesn't really know how to answer everything. So treat it as that. Treat it as an assistant sat beside you that's here to help with your workload. It's not taking your job. It just isn't. It's just there to help you be more productive. So fear is the big one. And I think every one of us who are consulting and should understand that we've really got to tread carefully. It's no good going, oh, the robots are here and look how awesome they are. And we've really got to be sensitive to this.
Yeah, and I think you're probably finding this as well, that it really needs to be a bottom-up approach because unlike most tech implementation that happens where the CEO or the board just says, this is what we're doing, we've made this decision, as you say, this is a very different journey that we're on and we need to hold people's hands. And I think education and helping people to overcome that fear first and to actually play an active role in, because people in the front line, they know what their job is, they know what the pain points are, they can, really easily see how this technology, once they understand it, can make a big impact in their role.
And I think people like yourself with that culture background is going to be, for the next 5-10 years, is going to become really huge. And because beforehand, if we were talking to people about strategy, if we were talking to people about implementation and different partnerships or whatever it may be, culture will always eat strategy for breakfast, the famous saying. But of course, now more than ever, culture will eat itself if it's left unchecked and we let the receptionist think that the new AI is here to take the role, or if we let the researcher think that the new analyst is not a tool to help them, you can see this real hesitancy instead of excitement, which they really should have. So I think culture is going to come to the forefront. I think that's going to be a huge thing. It's not something I do, I have to be honest. It's just something I'm seeing more and more and more of.
Well, and I think it's often a natural part of education too, and when you're consulting and educating, but I think all of us being conscious of that culture. And when I talk about culture, it's about how do we create a culture of play and curiosity and excitement and exploration, and really make it safe for people to try these tools. Because, there's some ridiculous statistics around kind of 78% of the workforce are using AI, and yet only 30% of that's being paid for by companies. And when you look at that discrepancy, it's like, oh, so people are taking their work home and using AI, but they're a bit scared that it might be seen as cheating, or that they're not supported in doing that. And I think
Yeah.
unless we really create that culture of supporting people in using the tools, trying new and innovative ways of doing things, it's going to be a very rocky road for the next few years while companies figure that out.
There was a great thing called, so when the newspapers saw ChatGPT had come out and could write papers and could write white papers and emails, they went around trolling around a lot of the universities going, well, how about you and what do you think to it? So all the deans of the universities could go out and say, we don't use ChatGPT with any of our academic stuff. No, they use a thing called Jenny AI. And Jenny AI just writes like an academic and cites and creates, and it's got plagiarism checkers and things in. But it's just funny that they had to go out and create something that realistically is pretty much a wrapper of GPT. And they had done this just for the academics, but the academics love it. And they're all using it. Like millions and millions and millions of them use Jenny just because it writes like an academic.
So, Julian, one of the questions I get asked the most is, when you're new to AI, or even if you've been around AI for a while, how do you stay up to date and across all of the changes? I mean, yesterday, a whole bunch of AI platforms went down and the internet was screaming that it's the end of the world, because it was like AI all went on holidays yesterday and left people to think for themselves. How do you stay across all of the latest changes that are happening with AI? Because it's advancing at such a rapid rate.
So I test 20 new AI tools a day. I've done 6,000 now.
Wow.
And once I've got this, I really should go to the gym instead of sit in front, but instead I do this.
If only AI could go to the gym for you.
Oh my word, fingers crossed one day. But then from there, you need to develop some networks. So go on to some forums, Facebook forums, LinkedIn forums, whatever, and subscribe. Simply subscribing to those forums means you'll be amongst like-minded people, and when something new comes out, you'll get early, this has happened. Then Twitter. AI is run by techs. Techs love Twitter. X, I should call it. And so follow them. If you don't like X, it's okay. You don't have to interact. You can just use it as a news feed, but only a curated news feed. So search for OpenAI, search for Anthropic, search for Mistral, search for all the big names of ask GPT for a list of AI companies and follow all the people. And then you will get very, very early updates. And you'll get all the different kind of conspiracy theories that come along with it. So I tend to find there's a lot of them.
So that leads me perfectly on to our final question before I ask if you've got any kind of closing thoughts or advice. You've tested 6,000 AI tools. I think I said to you in an email, I've had to ban myself from AppSumo because I actually, last month, I took 12 months worth of my business bank transactions and I uploaded the Excel spreadsheet into ChatGPT and asked it to analyze what are my monthly subscriptions? How much am I paying a month? And if these are the 5 tasks that I do on a daily basis, which are the most important platforms for me to stick with? And I was paying over $1,000 in subscriptions monthly. And of course, ChatGPT put itself on my list of subscriptions to keep. But of all the tools you've tested, maybe steer clear of all the big ones. What's your favorite AI tool and why?
Oh, I love that you said steer clear of the big ones. So obviously the big ones, GPT, got to be in there. Kyber. I'm not a videographer, and until Sora comes out, I love Kyber because to make an entire movie or 3-minute music video is a real onerous task. Except when you use Kyber, you can go in and say, I'd love to make a video about this, where the protagonist is female, walking along a street, holding hands with her children, but make it cool, make it do these sorts of things. And then you can go in and choose the style. And then from there, if you want it to be synced with a piece of music, you can upload the music and then you click create. And it will say, is this a thumbnail? Does that look like the thing you want? Yes. And off it goes. And you have a beautiful AI generated video. I really love that. That's just one of the fun ones. Outside of that, let me just have a very quick cheat here. There is one called, oh my word, I've got so many. Which ones? So Hume, Hume AI, is a scientific generated, but it's an emotion mapper. And so many doctors at conferences say, oh, I'm a doctor. I've been a doctor for however long, and this will never replace me. And then I open Hume, I turn the camera on, and it starts looking at me and says, this is how Julian's feeling. And it maps my emotions.
Oh,
and it has this thing called Dad or Not the Dad. It's a paternity test. You answer 10 questions, it will tell you if you're the dad. It also has this thing where it's got a EV. It's an emotional AI, and it's empathic. If you want to see the future of what's going to happen, it's all voice. Everything's going voice control. The first step to that is Hume. Just talk to it. Have a conversation. It's free. Press the button and just talk and see. If you get excited, it gets excited. If you feel down, it gets down. Now, if you think on medical cases where counseling is required, and let's say that person can't afford daily, or when they probably need hourly in some cases, what's stopping us having a tool there that can sit on an earphone and have that continual conversation with that person in an empathic way? Mm-hmm. I think it's just the most incredible tool.
It's one of the objections that a lot of people have, is that AI can't do empathy. And there's some really interesting research that actually shows that patients prefer the conversation with AI than some doctors. So yeah, it's certainly interesting times. I'll have to go check that one myself. I have to say, the one that's changed my life in the last couple of weeks is Organized ChatGPT, which is a Chrome extension. And it means I can search my chats in ChatGPT and I can sort them in folders. And that has transformed everything for me as a Chrome extension, because I can now find things again, which I still can't believe that ChatGPT hasn't put search and filing into its architecture yet, but it has to be coming.
There's one called Writing Mate by Chat Labs, and it's an aggregator of large language models. And what you can do is you can have GPT on one, Claude on the other, Gemini on the other. You can have Llama on the other. As many large language, you can have 2 on the screen at the same time and compare the answers.
Oh, interesting. I do a lot of that.
On the left-hand side, it has a prompt section, regularly used prompts. So these ones I can just drag and drop the prompts across. So now not only is it searchable, but it also has saved prompts. It's just
nice.
wonderful.
I have to go have a look at that one as well.
Yeah, I'm not doing very good for your subscription issue, am I?
You're not. I think I've just, resigned to the fact that my subscription bill is going to be enormous for the next few years. So, Julian, as we wrap up, are there any final thoughts or last pieces of advice that you'd give to people on their AI journey and where we're heading?
I think there's two things. The first is really repeating what Jensen from the head of NVIDIA says. The future is domain specialists. We're not creating AI that only techies can use. We're creating AI that the general public can use. We're at a point now where you can talk to your computer, your phone, and it will answer honestly and wholeheartedly and create you things. So you being a specialist within whatever sector you're in or within whatever job role you're in, you're the specialist of your domain. That tool is there to help you. You just have to ask for its help and it will help you. Lean into that. That is the most incredible opportunity for everyone. And the next piece is back to the creativity. It's for everyone. There is nothing. I've got massage therapists taking photos of people's backs going, and it says, well, this is the muscle that's in spasm. This is the best way to treat it. I've got hairdressers with augmented reality screens on that when they look at it, they go, well, this is your skin complexion, hair length. These are your haircut options. If you look at what's coming with the glasses now with lenses in, how long until GPT is plugged in? And you can go, not only what am I looking at, but measure the square meterage of this building, identify everything in it, create an assets register and tell me the total value. These sorts of things are going to be just industry shifting, and it's not when they get here, they're here now.
The future's
it's just
here.
Plugging them all together.
Yeah, that's right. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Julian, for sharing your time and your wisdom and expertise with us today. And go and have a look at Julian's music channel, and we'll share all of the links to your website and to your LinkedIn profile and things in the show notes. So thank you so much, Julian. It's been great to talk with you today.
Thank you. I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Thank you for tuning in to the AI Grapple. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform. We would love to hear your thoughts, so reach out with any questions or comments about the show. Until next time, keep grappling with AI and stay curious.